Oh my, Grandmama, we've got another young cook.
We do. Good afternoon. I'm Rose from Grandma Rose's Open Pantry, and we're still in New England with Kurth. And today he and Addie are going to be making lasagna. Excuse me. Don't know what that came from. But Kurt's going to tell you how he's going to do his lasagna, and probably Addie is going to be helping him a little bit. Addie, you want to tell him hey? Tell Granddaddy hey.
Hey,
Wave
baby.
to him.
There you go. There you go. Good girl.
All right, so tonight we're going to make my lasagna recipe. It's not necessarily an extremely difficult recipe, but there are a few things that I do to it that I think make it special. But again, like with everything, most of my recipes, it's very much like a pantry chef kind of recipe, and it's stuff that we can make every evening because I'm cooking like this every day when I get home from work. So tonight we're going to start with, we'll show you guys what we're doing to prep, and then we'll get into the assembly and everything else a little bit later on.
Yeah.
All right, so for right now, I'm going ahead and kicking this on. I'm browning my meat here. You guys can use any meat that you'd like. Tonight we're using a plant-based, it's not even real meat, but it emulates an Italian sausage. Sometimes I do it with hamburger, sometimes I do it with turkey. It just depends on what we have in the fridge at the time and what we want to do that time around. So I'm going to go ahead and start browning that. And then I've got a pasta sauce over here. This is, again, rarely do I make my own pasta sauce or do anything like that. Usually I'm just buying whatever brand I like at the grocery store. We just so that we have two mixed tonight, so I'm making two lasagnas. Grandma's going to give you guys the recipe for one, but what we're doing tonight, you'll see it, is if you're confused by the volume, everything's doubled because we're making two at once because of the amount of people that we have here.
Okay, I'll show you. There's the two containers, so it's double. We're going to make two. We got a lot of people to eat. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to work on browning this, and we're going to get this sauce heating, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you guys where we are in the process, and then we'll get into the assembly and what we're using for noodles and everything else.
Okay.
So we'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay.
All right, good.
All right. So we're picking back up. So we've browned our meat here. Okay, this is Impossible meat, and it's Italian sausage.
But it's very good. We've eaten it before here.
Yes, it tastes fantastic.
It's not
some of the
actual
ones
meat.
are hit or miss, but this one in particular is fantastic, and it goes really well with lasagna. So, just like we covered last night, everything I make is gluten free, not sugar free, and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But everything that I make is gluten free because of Liz's celiac. So tonight this is gluten free lasagna. For the lasagna, this is the best product. All right, so this is Barilla's gluten-free noodles. These are ready to go straight in the oven, so you don't have to pre-cook them or anything else. They are a bit tricky, and I'll talk about that during assembly. You want to get them just right, and you got to get the right ratio of sauce to make sure that they soften up properly. Otherwise, they can get a little bit gummy, and they'll stay hard, and they'll get too crisp while they're sitting in the oven because it's a gluten-free noodle, and so you have to make sure they stay wet during the assembly process. So this is browned. I've got white and black pepper, salt, pepper, white and black pepper, salt, garlic. I've got a little bit of thyme, oregano, and in my sauce, like we talked about before, we mixed two 24-ounce jars of sauce there. That I never, even if I'm using a store-bought sauce, I just don't leave it as is. I always like to add a little bit to it. So that has garlic powder, red pepper flakes in there, and some minced garlic as well, and some oregano in there too, just to jazz it up a little bit. Because I like a lot of flavor, so I will punch things up every time. I don't use anything as is. I'm always going to add seasoning to it. Okay, and then the next thing, so this is browned. That's heating. All right, you'll notice that I had it in a different skillet a while ago, or a different pan. I've switched it to this skillet because of the volume. Again, we're making two of these, so the volume of the sauce and the meat I want to be able to get it all in the same container, because one of the things that I do when I'm making this is I'm going to take all of this sauce and I'm going to put it inside of the meat and make my like bolognese, my ragu, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm going to mix that, and those are going to heat together for a little bit before we start assembly. All right, so another thing that we're going to do. So this is one of the things that I do that everybody really finds unique for a lasagna recipe, and it's the thing that separates mine from everybody
Because
else's.
I've never done mine like this.
And it turns out
I
really
am
fantastic.
anxious. Yeah.
So if you try it and you like it, let me know. Everybody that's eaten mine
Says it's the best
best
they've ever
lasagna
eaten.
they've ever had. It's kind of it's a common trend. I'm very modest about it. So what I have in here. So for this lasagna recipe, all right, you're going to need an entire 8-ounce container of cream cheese, and then you're going to need about, I'd say about 6 to 8 ounces, depending on your preference of ricotta cheese. And you're going to mix those together in a bowl. All right, and then when we get to assembly, you'll see what I'm going to do with that. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and get this mixed. So I've doubled this up once again, because it's a double recipe. So we've got 2 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese in there. I've got an entire 16-ounce container of ricotta as well.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take.
No, we don't measure.
No, I never measure anything.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We'll figure it out. Grandma's going to take down.
I'm writing down his recipe, so I'll have it in the description box.
I've never measured anything cooking, so I just know what it looks like.
Yep.
And then I go back and I taste, and if it needs more. But usually when I've done, if it's a recipe that I do a lot, it's just all by sight. I don't even taste it before it goes in. So we want a lot of, you'll see I was liberal with the garlic. I'm really liberal here with the oregano too, because this is, we're dealing with cream cheese and ricotta, so there's not a lot of
Right, and flavor.
built-in flavor there. Those are pretty bland, so
Yeah.
we want to kick those up, and we want to make sure that you can taste it. A little bit of black peppercorn, and then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of salt on top there. So now all I'm going to do is really incorporate these and make sure that the ricotta and the cream cheese is mixed together. To make this easier to do, ricotta blends pretty well. That's something that you can pretty much take right out of the refrigerator and start mixing. The cream cheese, however, is not. And for those of you that have worked with cream cheese before, you understand that. So what I do is whenever I start prepping everything and getting my oven preheated and all of that stuff, I go ahead and I take my cream cheese out of the refrigerator so that can start to soften up.
Yeah.
Because it just makes this a lot easier. It's not necessarily part of the process.
Right.
I mean, it will make it more pliable when you're putting it in the noodles. But it's just a lot easier to mix. So that's when we start there.
And if for some reason you forget to take it out of the fridge, you can put it in the microwave for just a few seconds and soften it, which I forget lots of times. So.
All right. So our sauce has been sitting over here, and we're going to go ahead and combine that with our meat.
Looking good.
So, and I know a lot of people when they're cooking with ground meat, they want to drain their meat before they do anything else with it. I never do.
Well, this doesn't have, that's not grease, is it? Isn't it just juice out of the plant-based whatever?
I'm not sure what it is, but it
Okay.
reacts the same. But even if I'm
Okay,
using
all
turkey or hamburger or whatever, and whether I'm making
I like
tacos
that in there too.
or whether I'm making whatever it is,
You don't
I
drain it.
never drain my pan.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would drain your pan and then add more oil to
Right,
it when
right,
you've already
yeah.
got the fat and the flavor and everything.
And your
so
flavor's in
and
the fat.
yeah, you're just draining everything off of it.
Yeah.
So you'll see even with this this Impossible stuff, you get kind of that oily mixture,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So you just kind of work that in.
Looks good.
And you keep working to incorporate that. So one of the sauces that we used Again, I just happened to grab what we had in there. We had 2 different sauces
Yeah,
in there, completely different brands and completely different composures. So that's why I wanted to mix them together and do a little bit more seasoning to
Well,
them.
you're adding more seasonings to it, and you're gonna make it to your taste anyway. So
Yeah,
if it's a good pasta sauce, I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't matter.
It's like the cornbread from last
Right,
night for our
sure,
dressing. It doesn't
sure,
matter because
yeah,
I want to add so
yeah.
much stuff to it anyway. And then so the last thing that I'm going to do. So one of these sauces was a light sauce that had ricotta mixed in it. So one of the other things that I do is I always mix in just a little bit of this into my sauce. And so this is still a little bit too dark for what I like.
Yeah,
And so I like more of that ricotta base, like a vodka sauce, like a lighter,
Right.
that lighter color.
yeah,
So I'm going to take just like a dollop of this,
okay.
and we're going to put this over here.
Chris, like me, he goes a lot by sight and by taste.
I'm going to mix that in here. And you'll see, like, so one of the things you'll notice is this doesn't look like it goes a long way. But if you take like 3 tablespoons of it and keep moving it around, you'll notice that as it incorporates, it does.
Yeah.
It goes a very long way when you're mixing it into a red sauce like
Yeah.
this. So it doesn't take nearly as much, even in a container this large. You see, it's still
Right,
breaking down,
yeah.
and it's still lightening this whole sauce. So never really go more than about 3 tablespoons.
Okay.
In the beginning. If you want to always, you can always add more, but you can't take it out, right?
Yep, that's it. That's exactly. I've always said that. You can add to, but you can't take away.
All right, so our sauce. So I've got a little bit left over there, but this is just about the way I want it. So what I'll do is I'll keep that in reserve because I've got my bolognese here. Okay, so when I get to assembly though, if I figure out that with these 2 lasagnas I need like a little bit more sauce just to make sure that I'm covering everything, then I'll just use my reserve over
Right.
here and supplement to what I've got already
Yeah.
prepared.
Yeah.
So I can add that in at the end if I need to. But I like the consistency of this, so we're going to stick with this.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
So that's all the stuff that we're going to do on the front end. So this comes really, it's pretty quick. Those of you that have made lasagnas before, you know it's not, most of the time it's spent in the oven
Right.
and
Yeah.
not so much on the front
Yeah.
end. So we've got our sauce, we've got our bolognese now,
Yep.
it's mixed together. Everything's seasoned like we want it. We've got our cream cheese and ricotta mix, and that's good. And then we'll come back in just a second and we'll talk through assembly.
Assembly.
All right.
Great. All right. And that's
It
Parmesan.
looks like we're about to get started here.
We're just trying to get everything so Kurt can
Wow,
get to it.
looks good,
Really
Kurt.
easy. Okay.
Okay, so now for our assembly. So
Okay.
we both just
I know.
Every segment, it's a
I
cough
know.
or clear
It's
in the throat.
something. Yeah.
Okay, so the assembly for this is particularly important. There's just a couple of things. So I do, as far as like what else we're putting in here. So for our cheeses, I've got 2 here. These are both fancy shredded Parmesan. I've got 2 of them here just because this one's just got a little bit in there left. Mozzarella and cheddar jack, and then I've got shaved Parmesan here. And remember, we've already got ricotta in there. Now, as far as which cheeses I use, doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want to. And I use different ones. Again, I went, before we did this tonight, we were like, hey, you want to make the lasagna tonight? And I went in the fridge, and that's what's in the fridge. So
Yeah.
that's my combination. This time, it might be slightly different, the next time that I do it. It is going to be Parmesan heavy every time, obviously. And we're going to want mozzarella and stuff in there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
as far as which blends we use, those might change
Yeah,
from time
yeah.
to time. All right, so now the nuances to using this. So we were talking about this product before. It's an excellent product, tastes great.
Show me the box again. Let me get a good picture.
So it's the Barilla oven ready lasagna. It's gluten free.
Okay.
Okay. So, but it can be finicky, and I had a little bit of a learning curve using this.
I tried to use it one time
Yeah.
and it didn't work.
Chewy.
I just didn't know how.
Crunchy?
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know how to do it. I guess. Yeah.
So it can be. So like I said, we're gonna talk through that as we're doing it though.
All right.
So we're gonna go through and I'll show you how we assemble this. All right, we're gonna start. We've got our bolognese mix here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, and all I'm shooting for is to put just enough in here so that I can spread this around It doesn't have to cover it completely, but I just want like a nice little base layer here on the bottom.
For your noodles to sit on.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is where our first layer of noodles is gonna sit.
Okay.
All right. And the assembly is not like overly complicated, as long as you do a few things right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we want enough sauce on here just to spread. I also use, so for this I usually use this casserole dish just because it's slightly
Right.
it's my largest one.
Yeah.
This one's a little tighter, so
This
hopefully.
one is like a 9 by 13. This one is like a probably 10 by 8, 11 by 7, something like that.
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
that doesn't give us any issues when we go eat this
Right.
thing in a little bit.
It won't. No.
So, and this is one. All right. So we've got the first one down here. I'm not going to use everything that's in this box, because if you use the amount that's inside of the box, it's going to be too much noodle. It's not going to cook through, and you're going to get that chewy
Okay,
or
yeah.
overly crisp part. So as far as so these are still, again, these are oven ready, so they come out of the package. They're still hard, and you're just going to overlap them like this. You want to overlap them in there. Okay, so what we want to make sure that we don't do is we want that like 3/4 of an inch to an inch gap all the way around.
Okay.
Okay, the reason for that is if it touches the edge of this dish while it's baking, that's what's it's gonna make it super hard and crunchy, and like more so than you would think because of this gluten free.
That
So
is
you
the
have to get
mistake
it.
I made.
Yeah, so you have to leave that
Yeah.
border. And that's what I'm saying. I hope we can accomplish
Right.
that in here. We
Right.
might have to push them in a little bit more.
Yeah.
And overlap them more than we typically would, because this dish is a little bit smaller.
Right.
So when you guys go to make this recipe, use your largest casserole dish, whatever you got in the house,
Yeah.
because you'll get a better result and not as much difficulty. Like the
Right.
al dente with the, you know, it's more than al dente. It's like brick hard.
Hard
So
and crunchy.
yeah, we don't want that. All right, so we've got our meat sauce as our base. We've got our first layer of noodles. Now we're gonna go in with cheese. Cheese doesn't matter. There's no rhyme or reason to this. What's this one? Natural shredded, aged 10 months. Okay, that's the same as that one.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I don't measure anything, and I use a good bit of cheese.
Love cheese.
So I'll do a good mix. I'll just pretty much grab at each one of these, fill this in. So nice little base layer of the Parmesan there. Mozzarella is pretty much just filler
Yeah. Yeah. It's filler. Yeah.
for the flavorful cheese. It gives us the
Because
texture
there is not
and
much
stuff.
flavor to mozzarella.
It depends. I mean, when I lived in Italy,
I like it.
when I lived in Italy, you learn like what mozzarella cheese can be.
Oh.
But as far as like living here in the U.S., I mean, mozzarella is
It's-
mozzarella.
right,
It's
yeah.
like a vehicle for other flavors.
Right. Yes.
So we did that, and then we'll put our cheddar jack here. And that I'm not going to do too much. I'm doing really the cheddar jacks just to give our mozzarella
Yeah. A little flavor.
a little bit
Yeah.
of flavor.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got plenty of those. I'm going to leave the shaved stuff alone. That'll be kind of like a finisher that we'll do towards the end.
Okay.
So that's that layer. All right, now we don't want to get too many layers into this because of our noodles here.
When do you put this?
So that's what we're about to do.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Oh,
so
okay.
we've got those. All right, we're going in with the next layer.
And remember, leave a space around the edge. It's
Yeah,
very
you'll see how much of a gap.
Yeah.
just these can go.
Very important. Okay.
So I've got a whole nother box of these if we need them. But I had,
Okay.
because I use fewer than what's in the box,
Right.
I usually have leftovers. So after Liz makes me make this every week. So after my fourth box, I get a box for free because I've
Yeah,
got a
right.
couple of noodles. So I just
Right.
throw them in a gallon Ziploc bag and save them. And so
Yeah,
every other box that you get, every so often you get that
Yeah.
free box. All right, so now what we're gonna do, so after we do this layer, this is where we're gonna incorporate this, okay? So we're literally gonna take this dollop for dollop. We're gonna dump this in here.
So there's only one layer of the ricotta and.
Yep, in this whole
Okay.
thing.
Okay. All right.
And this is what, because we don't want to mix it in and water it down and
Right.
everything
Right.
else.
Yeah.
We want this to be like a showcase, like right in the middle of this thing.
Oh, okay.
All right, so
right.
what we're
Y'all,
gonna do.
I am learning here.
So this cream cheese and lasagna mixture. Again, these aren't the volumes I'm used to working. I mean,
Right, yeah.
It's amazing how like seasoning and everything that you do
Yeah.
once you start doubling up recipes. That's why like a catering chef, that's like a completely different job.
Yeah.
Because when you start working with higher volumes, it's completely different than, you know,
Just home cooking.
it is.
Yeah.
It changes a lot.
Yeah.
And it changes your perception of what you think you're doing isn't necessarily the same.
Right.
All right, so some of these are broken. Let's see what we can get out of this. We have one broken noodle in there. Barilla, if you could send me a free noodle, I would appreciate that. All right. So this is what we're shooting for. I've got these 3 dollops across the middle of it, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and sit them on here just like this.
Oh my goodness, Kurt.
Okay.
See, I would have taken a knife or a spoon and
No.
spread that all out. I'm telling you what I would have done.
Why?
I don't know. It just would
All
have
right.
been.
You know what? We're going to break into that out of the box. Let me go into my Lazy Susan real quick.
Okay.
You know, Susan had to be really lazy to get a piece of furniture named
She
after her.
did. She really did.
She was like the Karen of the 1800s.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'll be using the rest of those. So now this is why. Because trying to spread it out,
Yeah.
too much work. Okay. Instead, you're putting these noodles on top of it anyway,
Right.
and they're already nice and firm. And so all you do is now that everything's in place, you give it a nice little push, and you see everything spreading out nice
Yes.
and even,
Yes.
pushing out. Okay. Now, don't do too much of it, and don't put too much pressure on it. Again, why?
break your
Because
noodle.
when it's in the oven at 425 for an hour,
Yeah.
you know, or it's going to be 45, 50 minutes. But
Yeah.
when it's in the oven for that amount of time, this stuff is going to warm up and it's going to start to travel anyway. It's going to
Right.
spread.
Right.
So we don't want to push it exactly where we want it. We still want to keep the mass of it in the center here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So now what I've done in the past is 2 more layers after this with the noodles.
Right.
And that's where I went wrong. Because then you have too much noodle and
Right.
those things don't soften up the right way like they're supposed to.
Right.
And so what we're going to do instead is we're going to do 1 more noodle layer in addition to what we've got here.
Okay.
Okay, so we started with the meat, and then we did the noodles, and then we did a cheese layer on top of it, and then we did noodle with our nice
Yes.
spread here,
Yep.
another layer of noodles. All right, so now all we're doing is trying to get to the finish line. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I like the finish line.
I like the finish line too. I'm gonna love this finish line.
all right. So this time what I'm going to do is like build it up, and I'm going to like reverse it.
Okay.
So instead of going with the meat sauce first, we're gonna go with cheese.
Okay.
That's why we have this other one.
Yep.
We needed it. All right, I know this is a lot of cheese, but remember, you guys are gonna be making 1 of these, not 2 of these.
Right. Yes.
So don't go buy your whole dairy section. It's still a lot of cheese. You don't want 1.
Well, we love cheese.
Well, lasagna's about cheese.
Yeah. Cheese and yeah. We got little Hudson and his little walker down here.
Hey, buddy. What are you
darling.
doing? Hi. Oh, yep, you love cheese.
Oh,
Daddy's
Daddy
helping
loves
too.
cheese.
Oh my.
Wait, that's hot, Daddy. Come around here, baby. Come around here with Grandma. Come here with Grandma. Yeah. Yeah, let's watch Daddy. Oh,
Okay.
goodness gracious. Let's sit right here.
Last
Let's
one.
watch Daddy.
We're gonna put some of this cheddar jack on
Wow.
top of it.
Okay, you get some cheese. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's good cheese. Addie loves cheese, don't
Okay,
you, baby?
now that we've got that in place, I'm gonna come back in.
Cheese.
We're gonna finish off this with the rest of this meat sauce. I'm trying my best to keep these even as possible across the two of them.
Yeah, you don't have to have as much in the small one. It looks like you sort of divided it out about right, didn't
Luck.
you? Luck.
Goodness, goodness.
Well, a lot of things are won by luck.
All right, so you know, as I'm spreading this out, again, like this is it's gonna heat through in the oven, and it's gonna kind
And
of
it's
gonna
gonna
spread.
Yeah.
But I do want to kind of push it out the best I can.
Yeah.
To try and make sure that I'm gonna hit these noodles, because that's what I want. Is I want those guys to be soft.
Yeah.
And since these are those ready-to-bake noodles, and since they're gluten-free, they're stubborn.
Yeah.
So to make sure that they soften up and that we're not getting anything too al dente and nobody breaks it too, we want to make sure that it's pushed out so that it'll get there.
Yeah.
It'll travel. All right. So now, Brenda, I'm gonna come get a tight shot, kind of what this looks like, so you can see the gap. So we tighten these up a little bit. You can see the larger gap here, so this is my larger one. This is the way I like it to look. This is our supplemental one. All right, now, we see that gap around there, right? So what we're gonna do is to try and help make sure that we get these noodles and everything's wet. What we're gonna do is we're gonna come in, and I'm gonna come in on this gap right around the edge. And I'm gonna make sure with remember our reserve sauce from earlier that we were saving? Okay, we're just gonna punch that around there.
Very scientific
That was smart.
measurement. Yep.
That was smart.
Well, he's done this before.
Yeah, it's because
Hey, after you eat about 15 or 20 of these hard as a brick, you learn to soften them up, don't you, Kurt?
learn how to do it.
That's right. All right, so that's there. Okay. So the last thing we're gonna do.
All right, here's mozzarella.
Yep, we're gonna come back in. All right, we don't have to go nearly as heavy on this, right? Because we're not
Right.
building up a cheese layer inside of it.
Right.
But who doesn't like more cheese, right?
Who doesn't like more cheese? You're
So
right.
we want a little bit of that. We might as well finish this off.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do that.
Here's
We've
a little
used,
bit of cheddar. You want the rest of it, or is it all?
yeah, those are dead, right?
Oh, okay.
The Parmesans are dead.
So is this
We
one?
got this. We haven't used that shaved Parmesan yet, though.
Right.
So we're gonna do the shaved Parmesan. We're just gonna go ahead and empty these
Okay.
out.
It's gone, baby. It's gone.
So this stuff is nice. This isn't it doesn't really matter the brand, but this shaved Parmesan, instead of the dry, this is super, you know how soft that is.
I've never used that.
So
I
this
like
has
that.
really good flavor.
Yeah.
It's got that dried Parmesan flavor to it.
Yeah.
But it's really, this is really good in salads and all kinds of Italian,
I've never
Italian
used
inspired
it.
dishes. I say Italian inspired because Italian have a heart attack because they saw this lasagna. But that's it off.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay,
get some.
so last thing, we're gonna take a little more oregano. I'm gonna dump this on the top here.
Now I've never done this.
Don't be
either.
afraid of it.
I like it.
I
It'll be
like
fine.
it too because I love oregano.
Sometimes I'll use some parsley too, but
Yeah.
I don't have any right now. So
This is
it's
a
all
good tip on
yes.
pizza too. Top
Yes,
your
it is.
pizza off with
I
oregano.
always do. I always do. Right
Yeah.
before I put them in the oven,
Yep.
it's either oregano or parsley or both. That's I always
Parmesan
I do a
and
little
oregano
herb. Yep, little
as
herb
your
topping.
last touch.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
those are garbage.
Come on, let's go.
All right, so I'll get this out of the way so you can see that grenade. Those are the two.
Oh, thank you, baby. Thank you. All right, Daddy's fixing to put them in the oven. Daddy's fixing to put
That looks great, Kurt.
All right, so we've got two lasagnas. All right, and we've got that magical cream cheese and ricotta layer going right through the middle of it. All right, the last thing we're gonna do. It is hot.
Yes, baby, it's hot. It's hot.
Okay, so
Yes.
just like with my pies last night, All right, so I'm going to cover these with tin foil. All right, but I always pull them a little long so that I can give myself a little room underneath, because I don't, especially with the lasagna, when you have as much cheese as we're talking, the last thing that you want to do when you're baking covered is have your cheese grab onto that while it's in the oven.
And it will. I've
Because
had
then
it.
you're going to rip
yeah.
half your cheese off of the top of your lasagna.
Yep.
So you can take a peek, make sure it's good. That's good right there. We'll do the same thing for the other one. Then we're going to pop these into the oven. So our oven's preheated to 425. I'm going to bake these, my oven, probably, I'm going to do about 35 minutes. And then I'm going to take a look at them. I'll probably go 35 covered, and then I'll pop this off and do
You haven't
do-
done it? You haven't done it?
35 covered, and then do the last 10, 5 or 10 uncovered, just to make sure the cheese gets a little, starts to brown a
Yeah.
little bit and everything else. All right, so those are ready to go in.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot back there.
All right. All right, 35 minutes. Those are in, and then we'll come back and show you guys the final product.
All right.
And then we're gonna eat.
Okay, so both of these just came out. So we did 35 minutes at 425 covered, and then we just pulled our tin foil off the top so that we give it and gave it another 5 minutes so that they can brown. So this is the end result. So we're at 40 minutes total.
Whoa. Does that look edible? My.
Look at this one.
I'm going to show. Now that hole in the middle is right here with Grandmama. Who else but Grandmama? And then there's Corey.
Corey.
He's going to be sampling too.
Look in that,
So if you look on the side
door,
here,
get your
Oh,
fork.
you can
my
see
goodness.
where you've got that
Yeah.
that cream cheese ricotta level
Oh, good
layer
grief.
that goes through the
Oh.
middle of it.
All that melded together, didn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like you had planned.
All right.
All right.
Corey and I are gonna do this together.
All right.
Corey,
Then
I'm
we're
gonna
going
do
to
this in.
let Addie have a bite in a minute.
So
Oh, was I not supposed to do that?
no, I was gonna say for this you might need a butter knife just because
okay.
of the to make it cleaner.
So you don't squeeze all your meat filling out.
Yeah, because those gluten-free noodles are a little
Oh,
al dente.
wow. Here, Corey.
Oh, Addie, you want some lasagna? Oh, baby girl.
Should we sing Jingle Bells or something?
It's
wanna try
hot.
some?
Wow, it's hot.
Jingle bells, lasagna all the
You
way.
love lasagna.
Oh my
Yeah,
word.
you love lasagna.
It's delicious.
You love lasagna.
Isn't it amazing what
Yeah.
noodles and cheese can do
Oh, do you
today?
have the mic? Here, try this.
Ah,
Oh, you
Wow.
want the
That's
mic
the
on?
top.
Okay. Here, let's put it on.
I got one too.
Here, you want to put it on? Don't
she wants the
drool on
mic.
Don't drool on the mic. There we go.
All right.
Now you're wearing.
Now,
You
give her
gonna
a
say
taste,
something?
Grandmama. She's got to
say
have a
hi?
taste. Just get a little cheese or
Say
something,
hi.
Wow.
Say hi.
so it won't be so hot.
I know, Grandma.
Grandma ate some, didn't I? Does Addie want a bite?
No.
Addie, yeah.
Oh, you want Daddy?
You want Daddy to eat some?
Corey, is that real good?
Oh, it's
Yum,
delicious.
Dad's gonna eat. Daddy's gonna
I
eat.
make mine similar, but I don't put the cream cheese in there, so that's really good.
So
That's
good.
good.
Oh,
Y'all,
yeah.
this is absolutely delicious.
The best.
Corey,
Yeah.
The best.
it is
lasagna.
the best
You've ever had.
lasagna I've ever had. It really is.
So this is gluten-free and meatless. Again, you can use the meat of your choice, but it's a pretty simple recipe. I think it's just, you know, a good approach to it. Nothing about it makes it super difficult. But the cream cheese and the ricotta are a great addition to it, and it gives it a nice creamy creaminess in the middle of your lasagna.
This gives a little
Wow.
bit of tanginess too. It's
Yeah.
a good balance. For
How much do you think you can eat of that, Corey?
Probably all that.
All of one of them.
Hey,
Yeah.
we don't let him start till I've eaten mine then.
Okay, thank y'all for joining us tonight. Well, it's night now. So, please subscribe to my channel, hit that little notification bell, and thank you, baby. And, Kurth and Corey are going to be cooking for us tomorrow night, so y'all join us tomorrow night and see what's in store. So, see y'all later.
This is us from Boston.